Vallabha Girivaradari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yamunatira Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Munatira Vanachari Ira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Pravikacharya Ashtodarsha Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namo Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Pravikacharya Ashtodarsha Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopana Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Anatakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaura Pramanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we'll be reading from the 7th canto, chapter 1, text 24. If you could repeat after me. Himsa tadabhimanina danda parushayor yata vaishamyam iha bhutanam mamaham iti parthiva himsa tadabhimanena danda parushayor yata vaishamam yamiha bhutanam mamaham iti parthiva himsa tadabhimanena danda parushayor yata vaishamyam iha bhutanam mamaham iti parthiva himsa tadabhimanena danda parushayor yata vaishamyam iha bhutanam mamaham iti parthiva himsa tadabhimanena danda parushayor yata vaishamyamiha bhutanam mamaham iti parthiva himsa tadabhimanena danda parushayor yata himsa tadabhimanena Anyone else from Zoom? Okay. Synonyms. Himsa, suffering. Tat, of this. Abhimanena, by the false conception. Danda parushayoho, when there is punishment and chastisement. Yata, just as. Vaishamyam, misconception. Iha, here in this body. Bhutanam, of the living entities. Mamaham, mine and I. Iti, thus. Parthiva, O Lord of the earth. Translation by His Divine Grace, HG Govardhana Dasa. My dear King, the conditioned soul, being in the bodily conception of life, considers his body to be self and considers everything in relationship with the body to be his. Because he has this wrong conception of life, he is subjected to dualities like praise and chastisement. Purport. Only when a conditioned soul accepts the body as himself does he feel the effects of chastisement or praise. Then he determines one person to be his enemy and another his friend, and wants to chastise the enemy and welcome the friend. This creation of friends and enemies is a result of one's bodily conception of life. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantigam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Ragunatam Vitamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hare Pre Vancha Kalpatriyubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhi Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So there's two different schools of thought. Aham Mameti and then Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Mameti is this verse here, that I am this body, and anything in relation to this body is mine, whether it's family, friends, nation, country. And then the right conception is Aham Brahmasmi, that I am Brahman, or I am spirit soul. And this verse is actually the basis or the foundation of our Krishna consciousness movement. Like His Grace Vijay Prabhu mentioned, there's no other group or organization that tells you that you're not the body, you're the soul within the body. And Srila Prabhupada, he says that real knowledge means to understand the difference between matter and spirit, and who's the owner of both. But unfortunately, the whole world, they don't know the difference. Matter is not eternal, and spirit is eternal. Matter is full of ignorance, and spirit is full of knowledge. Matter is full of unpleasantness, whereas spirit is full of pleasure. Satchit Ananda. And so matter cannot move independently. And Srila Prabhupada, he would use the example of a car. A car, it cannot function without the driver. Nowadays, there's so-called cars that can move on their own. But ultimately, you need a person to activate it, to turn it on, or to give it a commandment. So they can't move on their own. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it has this wonderful analogy, how the body is compared to the chariot, and the horses are compared to the five senses. The sense of touch, smell, taste, hear, and sight. Yeah. And then the reins is the mind. And then the intelligence is the driver. And the soul, we are just the passenger. So we are different from the mind, the body, the senses, and even the intelligence. I was at La Jolla Cove the other day, and I saw a nice group. They were the Jehovah's Witness. They always look snazzy, dressed up nicely. So I see them at Bobo Park, and I also see them at La Jolla Cove. And so I wanted to know a little bit more. So I asked them, do you think the body is the soul, or do you think there's a difference? And they said, according to our scripture, they're the same. So even the Jehovah's Witness, they don't know the difference between matter and spirit. And a lot of people, they identify with the body. I was at Balboa Park a few weeks ago, and I was distributing books to these two young men. And the taller one, he kept smiling and smiling. And I noticed he had bright white teeth, like pearly white. So after they took the stacks and they gave a donation, I complimented him. I said, wow, you have really nice teeth. And then the friend started laughing. And then I said, what's so funny? He said, it's fake. So I said, what? He said, yeah, it cost me $10,000. I said, $10,000 just for some teeth, And then you also meet those people where if you stand too close to them, their makeup will fall on you, right? Like they call it cake face, I guess. And you can see there's like a thick layer, and they're covering their whatever imperfections. And so everyone's just so absorbed in their bodily concept. And you also see those, they call it gym rats, I guess. All they do is just work out, and work out. So I was distributing books at La Jolla Cove, and I met this nice couple. They were from New Jersey, and they had come to San Diego to visit their son's graduation. And so one of the man, he asked me, what are these books about? So I told him, a lot of us, we take care of our physical health, but we neglect our mental health. So I started speaking about the mind and how important it is to have a steady mind, a clear mind, to be sober-minded. And they appreciated it. Anyway, at the end, they asked me how much for these books. So I said, we just kindly ask for a donation, whatever you can give from the heart. And so I was asking the lady, what do you do for work? And she said, I teach special ed. So I said, wow, that takes courage and that takes a big heart. So she smiled. And then the man, he said, do you accept credit cards? And I said, yeah. So I handed him my phone. I said, you can enter whatever amount you would like. So while he was pressing it, I was speaking to the Mataji. And then he handed me the phone and he gave $100. And I said, I think you made a mistake, sir. And he smiled and he said, no, keep all of it. So I charged it, and then I gave him 2 other sets. And I said, please give this book to your son, Hiding in Unnatural Happiness. And I told him this book will save your son from a lot of suffering, from unnecessary endeavor, Because I told him that this world revolves around material success. I need a bigger house, I need this, I need that. So I was reminding him that these books, they help us to live a more simple lifestyle. And he appreciated that. So they took the books and they went on their way. And Srila Prabhupada, he says, nobody wants to become old. If you ask an old man who is 80 years old, how old are you? He'll decrease the number. He'll say, I'm 65 or I'm 70. So that means that he wants to live a long life. And because that's the nature of the soul, we want to live forever, but we can't do it in this temporary material body. And Chanaka Pandit, he says there are 3 things that you should take care of immediately. Does anyone know what those 3 are? Ramap? Fire, debt, Maharaj?
Debt, disease, and fire.
Fire, debt, and disease. So these should be taken care of immediately. Just like if you have a house that's on fire, you don't wait till it gets bigger, right? Oh, maybe I'll wait, No, you take care of it. And, Let's see how it goes. And Srila Prabhupada, in the Lila Amrita, is described that his house actually caught on fire. And so he was saved. And he has a mark on his leg to prove that fire. And so similarly, debt should be taken care of. I remember when I was a kid, I would check out books from the library. And you would have like a 30-day, 30 days, and then you can return it. And I remember one of the librarians said, if you don't return it, there's a fee. And I remember I was checking out this joke book, because I like jokes. And so I remember after a month, I remembered there's a book, and I couldn't find it. In my mind, I was thinking, oh my goodness, when I grow up, I'm gonna owe $1 million. I was in distress. I was thinking, oh, I gotta find that book, So eventually I asked my father to bring me to the library. And the librarian, she said, oh, don't worry, you just have to pay the cost of the book. And that gave me so much relief. So debt and disease should be taken care of. Srila Prabhupada, in the Lila Amrita, he describes Dr. Bosch, the one that he was a partner with. And he said when he was a student, a professor, he mentioned that in our country, he was an Englishman. He said in our country, 75% of our students is suffering from malaria. And then this Dr. Bosch, he said He said, that's horrible. And then the professor, he said, what do you mean that's horrible? In your country, 80 to 95% are suffering from syphilis. So disease is disease, right? You don't think, oh, my malaria is better than your syphilis, right? That's foolishness. And also the example is given of a golden shackle, an iron shackle, and then a golden shackle, a silver shackle, and an iron shackle. Sometimes I use this on book distribution when they're trying to get their payments. I ask them, what's better, to have an iron shackle, a golden shackle, or a silver shackle? And they really start thinking about it, a golden shackle. And I just kind of giggle. And then they ask me what's so funny. And I said, well, you're still in chains. It doesn't matter if you have a golden chain, a silver chain, or an iron chain. So the purpose is to break free from this bondage. So similarly, whether one is Lord Brahma, one is an ant, one is a human being, or one is a demigod, we're still bound to this world of birth and death. So the cure is to get out. And then Srila Prabhupada, he describes a certain disease that we're all suffering from. And he says that Hiranyakashipu, he has this disease, and it's contagious. Lord Brahma has it, an ant, and we also have it. And he says that this disease is considered the master disease. I want to be the master of the nation. And Srila Prabhupada, he describes that sometimes people are happy with just being the master of one person, a relationship. And you see that at the park. Sometimes the man or the women, they're pulling the other, right? Don't take those books. Don't give them money. Spend it on me. And then there's people that are satisfied with 4 or 5 people. This is the family life. They want to be the master of that family. And then there's people that are not satisfied. They want a whole nation, a country. They want to become president. And then there's our Lord Brahma. And Srila Prabhupada, he was explaining that Lord Brahma was appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But why is he here? Because he had a desire to be the master of this universe. So the disease is the same, whether you're a family man or Lord Brahma. So this master disease. And then Srila Prabhupada, he describes the cure. And he says that Krishna came to give us that cure. And he says, Sarva Dharman Parityaja, Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo, Moksha Yashyami Masucha. Srila Prabhupada, he says, you rascal, just give up your master mentality. And then he says, just be a servant. Do not fear. But everyone has this wrong mentality that I should be the master, right? I should be the proprietor. And on book distribution, you see that. People are just so caught up in trying to be the Lord of everything. And then Srila Prabhupada, he describes this Krishna consciousness movement as a way to teach others to be a servant. Not only a servant, but a servant of the servant of the servant. And then he says, Parampara servant. My spiritual master is a servant of his spiritual master, and I am the servant of my spiritual master. A few days ago, there was this group of kids. They were doing a treasure hunt. And after they take a picture with the museum or whatever object they found, they would recite this mantra. And at the end, they said, I am a servant leader. So a leader should remember that he's also a servant, to serve those that are dependent on him. I'm not sure where this came from, but I saw a man, he had a tattoo on his arm. And he says, don't pray for an easy life, pray to have the strength to endure a difficult one. And I thought it was nice. Does anyone know who this saying came from? Okay. So most people, they're looking for an easy life, right? But a devotee, he prays, please give me the strength to overcome these difficulties. A lot of us, we've gone through so much in our life, right? Even before Krishna consciousness. And even during Krishna consciousness, we go through difficulties and struggles. But we should pray to Krishna, please give me the strength, the endurance, and the intelligence to overcome these. I was on book distribution, and I started asking this question. How is your stress level? And this man said, it's through the roof. You know, because people can relate to stress. And I was talking to there was 4 people in this group yesterday. And right before I even called them, the lady, she pointed at my table. And she said, I love that book. And I was looking, what book is that? And she said, Hiding in Unnatural Happiness. And she said, so far I read 25 pages and I loved it. So she brought over her friends, and then she pointed at the Bhagavad Gita. She said, you have the Bhagavad Gita too? I said, we have everything that you need. So she said, so I was showing her a few verses of the Bhagavad Gita. How in the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, either praising it or despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. So I told this group that this book, it's a very practical book, how to live happily in this world. Not only that, but to find eternal happiness. And then the 3, they wanted to get books also. And they were so nice, they paid for each other. One paid for a friend, another friend paid another, like that. So 4 people, they got 4 different books. One got The Journey of Self-Discovery, one got The Science of Self-Realization, one got the Bhagavad Gita, and then the other one got Hiding in Unnatural Happiness. And my spiritual master, His Holiness Bhadrinarayan Swami Maharaj, he said, you should bring Coming Back, you know. So I brought that. And I said, you know, you guys gave such a nice donation, I want to gift you this book. And when I handed it to them, they said, wow, reincarnation. And a lot of these young people, they said, I always wondered about karma and reincarnation. So I said, it's your lucky day. So they took the books, they gave a few more donation, and then they went on their way. And then as they were walking, the young lady, she said, I can't believe I have a Bhagavad Gita. She was so happy, you know. And Maharaj, he would say, what prevents these people from not getting books is if we don't go out, right? And there was this other lady in La Jolla Cove. I was telling her about our books and how wonderful they are. And she flipped through a few pages in the Bhagavad Gita and then started talking about rebirth and death and karma. And they said, I want to get this book. And I asked her, did you read something that caught your eye? And she said, I always believe in karma and reincarnation. And then she said, I want this to be my last life. I said, with this book, it will be, you know. Yeah. So she started asking more questions. Do you have any groups or events? And I smiled and I told her, you asked the right questions. So I gave her an events guide. And I said, please come visit us. We have events throughout the week. We actually study the Bhagavad Gita Monday through Wednesday, 7:15. We have a nice program on Thursday, Friday, and then on Sunday we have a Sunday feast. She was very happy to take the books, and she felt very welcome. She asked me, how much do you want for the books? And I used Vijay's line, you can't put a price on wisdom. She started laughing and she said, that's true. So she reached in her wallet and she gave $40 just for these books. Not just these books, but these transcendental literature. And so before she left, I asked her, who's your best friend and your worst enemy? And then she said, I don't have a worst enemy. And I said, let me show you a verse. So I showed her the verse on Bhagavad Gita 6.6. For one who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. And she looked at me with her eyes wide open. She said, wow. I said, you're going to love this book. And she said, I can tell already. So she took the Bhagavad Gita and she put it close to her backpack, actually. And she went on her way. Yesterday, there was a family. You can tell they're out of town because they use backpacks, right? Because locals, we know where to go. So they were walking, and then I called the mother. I said, excuse me, miss, are you a teacher? She said, how did you know? I said, you look very intelligent. You look very caring. And she said, oh, that's nice. So I asked them, how's your mental health? And she said, I'm actually a teacher of mental health. I said, perfect. So I gave her a stack of books. And then I didn't even have to say much. She said, how much for these books? And then I said, it's all donation. And she reached in and she gave $50, just like that. And she walked away. And then she told her kids while they were walking away, she said, you're going to read these books. She wants her kids to read these books. And so this brings me up to my last point, which is the December Marathon. The December Marathon is so fun. Those who have participated in this marathon, it's a very joyful occasion. We please Srila Prabhupada, we please our spiritual teachers, and we please the previous acharyas, as well as the Vaishnavas. And so it's a lot of fun, and we go out of our comfort zone to distribute these nice books. And I was telling Bhakti Nelson, Bhakti Nelson's such a nice devotee. And I was telling him, you should go out with me on book distribution. We'll have a lot of fun together. And then he said, I would love to. So he's already prepared to go out. And I remember the first time I went on this December marathon, we were at Balboa Park. I was with Bhakti Jamal and Raja Mohan. And people were just lined up to get the books. Like, we had to set up 2 tables. The first day, we had 1 table, and then we learned our lesson. So we set up 2 tables. So one was just distributing books, one was collecting Lakshmi, and then the other one was trying to talk to the people. And it went on like this. You didn't have to say a word sometimes. They just said how much for the books, and they were just handing us a donation. And so the December marathon is very important for Srila Prabhupada. He would always ask, what is the results? He wanted the temple presidents to read their scores to him. So it brings a lot of pleasure to Srila Prabhupada. I remember a few years ago, I was at Ocean Beach. I was by this, they call it Hodad's. It's like a burger place. And I was there with my books, and there was a liquor store right next to it. And then when they saw the signs, meditation and yoga, there was a line on my table, lining up to get my books. And then I said, it's a very special month, Christmas is coming. And I said, give one to your friend, and people were just taking. There was this little girl, she came to my table, and her mom was just patiently waiting for her. And she was reading through the books, and kids, they like pictures. So she picked up a higher taste, and she was looking through the different recipes. And she said, I want to make this for my mom, I want to make this for my dad. She was already planning. And then so she asked her mom, Mom, can I get this book? And then she said, of course. And then she asked me how much for the book. And I said, we just kindly asked for a donation. So she gave a nice donation. And then I said, please take this book also, the Bhagavad Gita. She said, what is this book about? I said, this book tells you who you are, what is the meaning of life, why is there so much suffering, and it helps us to have a good mental, spiritual, and physical balance in life. And she said, wow, this is the book that everyone needs. So I gave her another Bhagavad Gita, and I said, give it to a friend for Christmas. And she gave another donation. So book distribution, those who have tasted the nectar of it, it's something you can't get out of your system, And I was here, and from all these different devotees, Srila Prabhupada disciples, previous book distributors, they always tell me the best days of my Krishna consciousness career is when I was a brahmachari or when I was distributing books. So it gives me nice, what's it called, assurance that what I'm doing in life is actually a good one. And we're not just chasing after these flickering so-called happiness in the material world. And then, so I was, this is my last one, so before I end. I was distributing books yesterday, and there was this man, he looked very happy. I said, excuse me, sir, are you happy? And he said, I'm not happy. I said, what's causing you to be unhappy? And he said, life. So I said, here, let me show you this book. So I showed him the Bhagavad Gita, Hiding in Unnatural Happiness, Science of Self-Realization. And as I was explaining these books, you can see his lips on his mouth changed from a frown to what's it called? From a frown to what's like a grin and then a smile like that, you know. And I said, see, just by reading or just by hearing about these books, you're already smiling. I said, what to speak of actually reading these books? And he said, you're right. So he said, how much do you want for these books? And I said, you know, you can give whatever you can from the heart. He reached in his wallet and he swiped his card. He gave $50. And so when he was walking away, he was almost skipping. And Maharaj, he said, when was the last time you saw a full-grown man skipping, right? Well, yesterday I saw this man skipping. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Sankirtan. Is there any questions or comments? Amagalila Prabhu.
So you can know what you're saving people from in Ocean Beach. I went to that Hodad's place one time with some friends before I was before I came to Krishna consciousness. I went there once and only once, and here's why. So we got our burgers and whatever. So I bit into the burger. It is really horrible taste. I was like, oh man, it tastes like battery acid. Like it tasted really bad. And I looked, and there was a piece of a cockroach in the burger. And guess where the other piece was? Oh, no. It was still in my mouth, actually. So, yeah, it was really a rough place.
And, you know, when people buy... I remember one of the turning points of me becoming vegetarian or vegan, I bit into this, Hare Krishna, this burger, and I saw the arteries there. And I was like, what is that? You can see the arteries and the veins now, and I just spit that out. And I said, you know... This was before I found out about Krishna consciousness, but at that point I said, you know, I don't want to eat this disgusting piece of rotting flesh now, you know. So, yeah, people don't know what they're eating, you know, and they take pleasure in this carcasses, you know, like a vulture. Anyone else? No. Yes, Dravida Prabhu.
For those who eat the carcasses, but the whole industry. I mean, you can check this out. The greenhouse gases that are produced from this massive cattle raising and slaughter all over the world, not just in America, is equal to or greater than the gases that are coming out of the tailpipes. It's a tremendous burden on the earth in so many ways, but I mean, in every way you can think of, it's bad, it's damaging.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Marsh.
I read an interview by the head of Greenpeace, and the interviewer, BBC, asked him, isn't the most effective single act to cut greenhouse gases would be to stop eating beef and meat? And the guy said, yes. And they said, you're promoting so many peripheral issues when here's a big one. Why don't you push that people should stop eating meat? And the guy said, the head of Greenpeace said, if we push that, we will lose our funding. Because people just won't give them money. They want to save the whales, they want to save the dolphins, they want to, and fine, all more power to them. But the one thing that would make, just as Dravida Prabhu said, such a game changer, they don't push it because people will just freak and they'll lose their funding. They want to go save the penguins.
Mm-hmm. Joseph, did you have something?
Yeah. You want to say something?
When I was explaining the stacks of books that we have, how there's a vegetarian cookbook, 50% of the people, when they hear vegetarian, they say, you know, I wonder what it's like to be vegetarian. And I said, this book helped me to give up meat completely. And that told me you can learn wonderful meal preparations, you know, hundreds. And I said, and besides, why do you think it's okay for the poor animal to suffer just to satisfy your tongue. And at that point, they say that's real, you know. Why does this animal have to suffer just for my so-called enjoyment? So a lot of people, when they see our books, they know in the back of their mind, you know, this is the right path. I want to try to change my life.
We used to get produce for the Detroit Temple, the farmers market, the wholesale market, well, you know, go buy cases, like we do. And right next to it was a big, I think it was Armor Star, it was a big meat packing company, big complex. And it looked like Auschwitz. You see those pictures? You know, there were the trains coming in and the low gray buildings and smoke coming out of it. It looked just like Auschwitz. And you could hear the animals screaming inside. It was just a horrendous, the nasty smell. And as soon as I saw it, I said, this looks like you know, where they sent all the gas in the Jewish.
Yes, move.
One other thing. Anyway, before I came to Krishna consciousness, I was like a animal rights activist. So we used to go. There's one. God, I'm forgetting. I think it's after I. Yeah, after, yeah. And so we used to go. There's one slaughterhouse in L.A. Well, it's a little south of LA. I think it's called Farmer John's. It's farm or something, you know, kind of.
Farmer John's is all pigs.
Yeah, it's pigs. Yeah, it's pigs. So we used to go there and we'd stand for some hours, like at night especially. We'd stand right where the pigs go into the, you know, the trucks come, and then we had somehow or other we had like a agreement with the facility that the trucks would stop for some time and we'd be able to give the pigs like water and stuff, you know, and then just through the little holes in the truck, and then they would just, yeah, and then that's when they go inside and you can hear everything, and oh man, it was really, I mean, they were like, all of them were just like covered in feces and they're like packed super tight, and some of them are just like, basically they look dead, you know, already. And painted on the, you know, there's this big mural that wraps around the whole building, and you can see it's like a nice farm scene, you know, like, you know, the red barn and the blue sky and the sun shining, and then there's pigs with angel wings in the sky.
Oh, that they're being liberated?
Something like that, yeah.
Off to pig heaven.
Yeah. Social problem. Go ahead, Joseph.
Okay, on a lighter note, all those cows, it takes about 5,000 gallons of water to raise a cow, so the farmers and the hay that's being produced, that's more of a problem than the end result of what you're talking about, you know, slaughtering the animal. But the bigger problem is actually the Colorado River's being...
9 states.
And it's all hay out there for these cows, so it's the water that's the issue. Yeah. It's not the poop.
The next war will be started over water.
Very quickly. With that and the fracking, there's so much water for that.
It's going to hell in a handbasket, boys. Get out there and preach.
So the devotees will have a nice mission, you know, to try to save the people, the living entities, and also the animals, the souls in the animal bodies. Okay. Thank you for your time and attention. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Grant Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.